Hey everyone, how we doing? My name is Tim Pongres and this is Focus on Detailing. Today's video is all about answering the question, so you really want a 335i? Behind me I have a 2008 BMW E93 335i Pre LCI. To most that sounds like a bunch of letters and numbers, and no, I wasn't trying to summon something. They do actually have meaning. To break that down, we need to go back to 2004, where BMW wanted to reignite their 3 Series in the shape of their 5th generation, but you might more commonly know them as the E9X. Within the E9X, you had the E90, which was the 4-door, the E91, which was the estate or wagon, E92, which was the coupe, and E93, which was released in 2007, which was the convertible. Moving forward to 2006, they released the 335i. The 335 stands for the straight 6 3-litre turbo, and the I stands for fuel injected over the diesel variant. The LCI stands for Life Cycle Impulse, and I believe they introduced this in 2010. There were no massive drastic changes. Basically, you can tell the difference by a bit of Botox to the front and rear. To make it even more confusing, they did release a later 335i with a single turbo to replace this one in 2011. And you can differentiate the two by the engine code from this one being N54 to the single turbo being N55. Now, subjectively, they did sound better, and objectively, they were more reliable. But performance-wise, they were basically the same. Now, the 335i also had a diesel model, the IS that didn't come to Australia, M models, and the mighty Alpina that you'll probably never see in your lifetime in person. But we're not going to be worrying about any of that stuff, as we're going to be focusing on this one right here. And we're going to be starting with the external looks. But please ignore the external modifications that I've undertaken. We're going to go back to how it looks stock. So first of all, this might bring about the question, how did this particular car come about its looks? Well, for that, we need to go back to March of 1916, where an aircraft producer by the name... Specifically speaking, and in more contact with the E92, E93, were two men, one named Michael Markevka and Peter Gabbeth. And that's the story about how this particular BMW came to be in terms of its design. Now, if it isn't already obvious, I wasn't a fan of the base model's front bumper. That's right, a random 29-year-old Australian with no car designing history isn't happy with something to do with this car. I'm sure they're heartbroken. I'm sorry, but it just looked basic. A car with an engine such as this should be angry and proud, like, get out of my way. The beer at the pub isn't going to drink itself, not, please don't make me late for my spin class. One of the reasons why a lot of people didn't like the look of the E93 was due to its flat boot lid. A lot of people preferred the E92 with its more well-shaped finish, which I understand. But I also fixed this issue by adding this beautiful carbon fiber CSL boot lid. But the overall shape is nothing to knock. I love the way the lines over the bonnet go down to direct your attention to the kidney grille, and then to the side those streamlined angel eye headlights that BMW are so well known for. The dual exhausts are a nice touch and look that bit better than the single exhaust with the smaller displacements, and is a good way to tell if you're dealing with a 335i or not. The two elongated doors and the sleek height sits nicely on the road and gives you that slightly standoutish feel over general traffic. Drop that hardtop roof and it doubles the appeal. Now that I mention it, I think it's about time we show you why they call this the E93. Now with its top down, I think it's a good time to discuss the interior. It's a rather inviting car to fall into. Straight off the bat, you've got your ergonomic buttons that feel really good quality across the steering wheel, and just behind them, you've got your paddle shifts. Now these work a little bit different to what you might be used to. To downshift, you press forward on both, and to upshift, you simply pull backwards on both. A little bit different, but you get used to it. And behind them, you have your several stalks and all their different uses. A nicely laid out dash with easy to use iDrive offering navigation, entertainment and personalized settings, but you'll likely just be looking at fault codes. All finished with that brushed aluminium that sets off the entire space, and only made that much better with the soothing red lights that are on show underneath at night. Everything has that real top quality feel, as I said before, the buttons, and they don't feel loose or like they're going to break anytime soon. Touch a piece of wood if it was here. Your leather seats are basic but comfortable, with the ability to electronically move them around as you wish with lumbar support and heating. Now, black is the most common color, I believe, but they also did come out with a quite outlandish red, which does look nice in this car, as well as a white or cream. There's a tight space for 2 people in the back, but you don't really buy a car like this for the comfort of those sitting in the back. No, you buy a car like this for this position right here. When driving, it has that precise feel, and although heavier than its E92 counterpart, it still feels like a slot car on the road and just fills you with confidence. But also, in saying that, don't let your abilities get caught up with your ambitions. There's minimal lag, if any at all, thanks to the twin turbos working away, creating that linear range of power across the board, and the 225 kilowatt 400 newton meters of torque is enough to propel you from 0 to 100 in around 5.5 seconds. That's without the very common modifications that people give to these cars. You may hear them be called bolt-ons, and with a good tune, it can get you up to around 400 horsepower, and when you start adding bigger turbos, aftermarket injectors and methanol, you'll be looking at around the 600 horsepower mark, and that is enough to have a good time. The 6-speed ZF transmission is smooth and quick to act, and all you need to do is slap it into manual mode for a more user-orientated experience with a little bit more control. And now you can use the paddle shifts and the sports mode to boost the responsiveness. And boy, is this car responsive. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a great time. When it comes to the overall ride, it is pretty rough, but that's not helped with the 19-inch wheels and the Victorian roads that we're on. But say, speaking of the Victorian roads, if you're coming up to a pothole, it's a good excuse to test out the brakes, and they seem pretty capable. And the sound, for a 6-cylinder, it is amazing. From the turbo spooling up to the intake sucking in air, the exhaust note, it puts you in your own little world and makes your day that much better. So why do I find myself hardly ever using it? Look, it is so much fun to drive, but there's something lingering in the back of my head whenever I do. It's a sound that every BMW driver will likely know. It's one that'll send you into a PTSD spiral when you hear it, and it's all because you didn't fill up the wiper washer fluid.
You can't discuss the good without the bad, and the N54 is known for some rather frustrating issues. High pressure fuel pump, water pump, wastegate rattle, oil leaks, carbon buildup, boost solenoid, leaky injectors, and rough idle. And before you ask, yes, fixing some of these things entails some serious labour hours. And if you can't do it on your own, you'll likely see that generic scary European mechanical bill. Let's not forget about the cost of those parts they feel compelled to use, like the costly replacement screws from Germany. But like any car, keep up with the servicing and care, and it makes it that little bit less daunting. The engine is strong, it's just some of the connected stuff.
Now come closer, because I'm going to tell you something that might shock you, or maybe not if you're used to these European car prices. When these were new, they were around $26,000. That's 26,000 Dare iced coffees. But now you could probably pick one up for around $20,000 with low kilometers, and they only seem to be going down. So originally, it seems like the target audience was the financially free, but now maybe more so the financially compromised. But don't be fooled. Like with most of these other European cars, the price you see on the outside might be far from what you get later on down the track. If you can only just afford it, maybe avoid it, because if you don't do your research, you might be in for a rude shock down the track. Look, that is a bit of a generalization, and it's not meant to be scare tactics towards this car. Yes, it does have its faults, but with the appropriate and consistent care, they are amazing and fun to drive. But on that positive note, we're going to get into rating this thing.
The looks. If we're talking about the standard 335i, I'm going to have to go 7 out of 10. I love it for the most part with the curves and lines, but the front and rear bumper could have been more refined and aggressive. The M Sport was a big improvement. The interior. A comfortable and well worked out space with the tech you'd expect from a Euro car in 2008. Bluetooth connection for calls, but not for audio. It got halfway there. 9 out of 10. Under the bonnet, respectful performance with ease to add more. From the gear shift to the engine sound, it makes it a real ride, although you can't deny the N54 reliability, or lack thereof. 8 out of 10. The driving is exceptional. Firm and tight steering, creating an enjoyable experience, though the lack of an LSD was interesting. 9 out of 10. Usability. A hardtop convertible that sits somewhat comfortably as a sporty car. You can easily fit the groceries while travelling to get your iced coffee. Yes, I just outlined my weekend. 9 out of 10. Value for money. Well, back in their day, the score would be low. But with the market now and with what you're getting, an easy 8 out of 10. So overall, that gives the BMW E93 335i a total score of 50 out of 60.
Doesn't seem too bad, and to put this into perspective, you wouldn't be able to find much more of a sporty turboed car with the joy of modifying like this for under $20,000. Sure, you've got the same generation XR6 Turbo and SS Commodore here in Australia that you might be able to put in the same category, but finding one of those for less than $20,000 with low kilometres is like trying to find a young Australian that can afford a first home. It's bloody rare. Mercedes did make a CLS and CLK. You might be able to put head to head with this, but do you really want a grandpa spec car? So an affordable, sporty car that's got the style, impressive to drive and fun to modify, if you can just overcome the at times daunting mechanical problems that this can run into, it seems like a good deal. The key is to be aware, stay up to date with your servicing, and maybe have an engine fault code finder on your phone, as well as one of these OBD2 cords to plug into. And no, BMW drivers, erasing codes does not fix the issue. This car and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship. I love when it's working properly and I hate when it's not. But on that note, I'm going to be closing up this video. Thank you all for watching, take care, and I'll catch you all later.